Now that we have centralized logging, we can use CloudTrail Lake and Athena to query our logs for incident response, just like we did in the prior sections of this course, but for multiple accounts at the same time. So let's take a look at an example to make sure that it works by setting up CloudTrail Lake and actually querying our multi-account data. Now for this step, make sure that you're in your security tooling account. We cannot just use read-only because we're creating actual resources, so I'll go ahead and select Administrator Access. Then I'll navigate over to CloudTrail, and once that loads, we'll go under Lake, and we will click on Event Data Stores. Now I did this for testing a couple of times, so you'll see that I already have an event data store named Incident Response and Test. They are pending for deletion because it takes a few days. So I'm going to recreate one called Incident Response, but this time I'll just have to name it Incident Response 2. And I'll just call it incident response as if the 2 doesn't exist there. So just ignore that. I will leave most of the defaults as they are. So I'm not going to mess with any of these options. In fact, I'm going to go pretty quick through this because we've done it before. If you wanted to use this with Athena, then you'd want to enable Lake Query Federation. I'm not going to do that. If you want to practice with that, go ahead and do it, but I'll click on Next. Then under AWS Events, I'm going to keep CloudTrail Events. I will keep it at just management events, not data events. You can change it if you want to. It's completely up to you. And we also want to make sure that we enable for all accounts in my organization. Now notice as soon as I do that, it grays this part out, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But this is very important. This is what makes it enabled for all accounts and organization-wide CloudTrail Lake. If we expand additional settings, we can continue ingesting events beyond just the copy event. I'll leave this up to you. It's completely optional as to whether you do this or not. You should already know what this means because we've talked about it. But as a refresher, we're talking about either copying trail events and basically just copying up until that point in time, or doing that plus ingesting future events. For incident response, typically, although it depends, if it's an ongoing attack, then they'll leave this checked. But if it's not an ongoing attack, typically we'll just ingest past events. We also don't want to just use US East 1, but you can do that if you prefer for cost reasons. This shouldn't cost too much though, unless you just have a ton of data. Then for management events API activity, I'll leave it to read and write, and I won't mess with any of the other settings. Let's go ahead and click on Next. We can verify our settings, and then we can create our event data store. So now we can see Incident Response 2, creation in progress. We can give it just a couple seconds, and we'll see enabled, and we'll click on it. But as we scroll through this page, you'll notice that we're missing something fairly critical. We're not able to copy data or copy events into this event data store, which means we can't query anything. There's no data in there. What the heck is going on? Why is this happening? You'll remember that when I enabled for all accounts in my organization, it grayed out that option. We cannot do that, and this is a limitation that AWS imposes. I don't know that it's intentional. I think it's not intentional, but I've not actually asked anybody at AWS. It's probably just a technical limitation they may remove in the future. But as of today, as of the time of recording, to copy trail events to an organization event data store, you have to use the management account for the organization. You cannot use the delegated administrator account to copy trail events to your organization event data store. I know it's a weird limitation, but we'll do what they say. So to get around this limitation, we'll go back to our Access portal and we'll authenticate into the management account. We'll go into CloudTrail and then we'll go to Event Data Stores, and you'll notice that we have our event data store in there. So we can see the one that we just created since it's an organizational wide event data store. But now if we scroll down, we'll see event copy status, including copy trail events. So again, it's just not available. I don't know why. Doesn't matter. We'll move on. It's still going to work. After clicking on that, we need to select our event data source. We'll click on Choose Trail Event Source. This is the trail that I'm interested in. However, we're going to need to make a change because you'll notice that it's only grabbing data for this account, not for the entire organization. So we need to copy this, and then we need to change it to enter S3 URI. Then I'll paste that in, and I'll remove everything after the org ID. I'm not too sure why they pre-populate it that way, and they don't recognize that I want to do the entire org. Kind of a weird limitation again, but that's okay. We could just copy and paste that information. remove everything after the org ID, and we should be good to go. Next, let's go ahead and filter by date. Just for simplicity, I'll select the last 6 months, but you can do a custom range if you prefer. It really just comes up to your personal preference, how much data you need for your incident response, and how much you're willing to pay. If you don't remember costs, then please check out the pricing page for CloudTrail Lake. Then I'll scroll down to delivery location, and I'll select our event data store as the delivery location. Then we need to create a new role, which is the recommended. And for this role, it will be prefixed with this information. So I'll just name it incident response. And it will be CloudTrail Lake US East 1 incident response. You can view the permission policy and what that looks like. Then we can view the trust policy and what that looks like. And then we can click on copy events. It will give you a warning about pricing. We'll want to confirm. But as you might have guessed, we're going to run into an issue. And that issue is a permissions issue, which has to do with our S3 bucket policy. We created this role, and this role is going to be used to copy data from our log archive S3 bucket into our event data store. But because our bucket policy is very tight in that log archive account, it's not designed, or it wasn't designed initially, to provide access to this service role. And so the service role is going to fail in copying the data. It takes about a minute or two. As you can see, it's still trying, and it keeps trying and trying until eventually it's like, you know what, I can't do this, throw an error message. So we're going to give it a couple of minutes, and we'll be back when it's done trying. And then I'll give you the workaround on how to fix this issue. And there we have it. We have access denied, verify that the IAM role policy, S3 bucket policy, etc. has adequate permissions. So what we need to do is a few things. One, it did create the role, so we need to grab that role ARN. And two, we need to update our bucket policy. So let me go ahead and navigate over to IAM roles. From there, we'll see our brand new role I just created. We need to grab its ARN value, and I'll put that in my notes because I'll need it in just a second. So I'll paste this in, and then I need to go over to our log archive account, and I'll give you a template for what to do for your bucket policy. So we'll go to log archive, admin access, go over to S3, and then we'll open up permissions and edit our bucket policy. So right above this here, we're going to add a space, and then below the video, you'll be able to copy and paste this statement that you can add to your bucket policy. So this is what it looks like, and I need you to make a few changes. The first change is grabbing our role ARN. We will put that in this placeholder called role ARN as the principal AWS. So this is that service role that we just created, which is basically saying I'm allowing the service role in a different account to list the bucket, get bucket ACL, and get object for this resource here. So we need to grab this bucket ARN. You can either copy the entire ARN or just the bucket name, and then replace that information here and there. Now, when we save this bucket policy, we go back to the access portal, we go back to the management account. We're going to reattempt to copy our event data. So we'll go back to event data stores, scroll down to incident response, go back to copy trail events. Unfortunately, we have to re-go through those steps. I wanted to show you and kind of explain through. So hopefully you don't think this is a complete waste of time, but I think it really helps with the learning experience. We'll remove that from here, just a couple of extra steps. I'll go back to last 6 months, and then we will select our event data store. And instead of creating a new role, because we already have one and we're using that one, we want to select our existing role. Again, we have permissions policies. We know what those are. Now, if we do copy events and confirm, within just a few seconds, we successfully created an import request, and we can view the progress of that import request. So it's currently in progress. You can keep refreshing every few seconds. Eventually that data will get copied over into our event data store, at which point we can then go back to our security tooling account and we can start querying against this data. So let's give it just a few seconds here. And it depends on how long it takes, because it depends on how many objects you have in there. I had more than last time I did this, so it took a little bit longer. I also have a failure I'm not entirely sure why. It's probably something else I've been messing with in between recording, so I'll have to look at this later on, but that should not affect this lesson. We'll keep going. If it does affect it, then it's nice to see that things don't always go smoothly and according to plan. So we're going to pretend like this succeeded. Hopefully yours succeeded. If it did not, let me know and we can investigate. Now let's go back to our Access portal. Let's go back to security tooling. And again, we can't just do read only because we still need to write queries, not just read information. So we have to use our admin access. Ideally, we'd create something with least privilege where we're only able to query, but we are focusing more on just getting it done right now, not so much on least privilege. So we can see our event data store. We can go to query and we can select that event data store that's been populated with data. Now, a new neat thing that they recently pushed out is the query generator that uses AI. So I can give it a prompt and it will write that query for me. For example, to test this out, we can type something like, I want to see the latest access denied error messages and what the event name was, as well as which account ID it occurred in. And this actually does a pretty good job in my experience of using it over the past few weeks. So we'll go ahead and generate the query and it will write that query for us. And event time is greater than or equal to. So I'll actually probably do, let's see, message. You'd probably want to give it a time frame or you'd want to modify that. So we'll do the last month. I'll do 6, for example. And then we'll limit by, let's say, I'll limit by 30. Let's go ahead and run this query and let's see what happens. After just a few seconds, we see a success status with 30 different responses. So it limited to 30. We can go to query results and we can take a look at that. Let me close this out to give more space. So we can see multiple different access denied error messages. We can see what the event name was, the account ID, and the error message. But more importantly, and what I want to point out is we have multiple different account IDs. You can see 396, 299, 339, and the list goes on. We've limited to 30. I'm sure if I expanded it to 100, we would see a lot more. Point being, we are querying cross account. We're no longer just querying for incident response within a single AWS account. We are now querying against our entire AWS organization and all of its accounts. I don't care if you have 100 accounts or 1,000 accounts or even just 3. It would be able to go across all of that data and fetch those results for you. And this is very, very important for incident response because if you're responding to a time-sensitive incident, you don't want to be chasing logs across 50 different accounts. That would be insanity. So this is much, much more scalable and a much better approach for running incident response within an organization that uses AWS. So now that you've set this up, go ahead and feel free to run different queries to see the results that you get back. You may also want to simulate some events in your member accounts, like maybe launch some EC2 instances, maybe rerun through the scenarios of this course, right? Go back through those attacks and try to do this in different accounts and see if it's able to pull up the data or not. Just have fun, but of course, remember that there are costs associated with CloudTrail Lake, so be careful, look up the costs before you go and do that. But otherwise, that's it. Congratulations, you've centralized CloudTrail logging and CloudTrail Lake querying. And as one more follow-up exercise, actually, do you think you could also apply this to Athena and centralize Athena querying, just like we did with Lake? That could be a really good homework or assignment exercise that you could do in your own free time. And if you need help with that, let me know. But it's going to be very, very similar to what we did here. You just have to get the permissions right. So go ahead and have fun with that, complete this lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.